Hi, I'm Jesse Goldberg.
And I'm Lisa Harless.
And welcome to Mind Your Own Music Business. Our guest today is Tony Arata,
the amazing
songwriter.
That's right, the man that has been nominated for a Grammy for Song of the Year. He's won an ACM for Song of the Year. I am thrilled that we're going to get to spend some time with this legendary songwriter and all-around great guy.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. And Jesse, glad to be here. Appreciate it.
So tell us about yourself. How did it all start?
And where did it start?
And where did it
start? On
an
island, I think.
Yes, I was born in Savannah, Georgia, and grew up at a little place called Tybee Island, which is about 20 miles east of Savannah.
What's the population of Tybee?
It depends. I mean, if it's in the
Tourist
winter,
season?
if it's in the winter time, it's about 800, and in the summer season it grows to about 1,200 or something like that.
Okay, so a community.
There's an island off of Georgia?
Yes, it's one of the barrier islands, and you need to come down there, Jesse. It's beautiful, truly is, and it truly is an island community. There's one way on the island, there's one way off. It's just a great place. And
I'm from an island too, you know.
Long Island?
Long Island, that's right.
I've heard of that. Yeah. Yes.
So when we come to
Tybee, 3 million people on Long Island.
So if there's one way in and one way out, do we just say, we know Tony Arata and we get to cross the path?
That's true enough. And also, you'd have to be a fool to commit any crime out there, because there's only, like I said, there's only one way off. So all they have to do is wait you out.
Right.
But
so growing up there on Tybee Island, you were one of how many kids?
5 kids.
And where did you rank?
I was the baby.
Bouncing baby boy.
That's why he turned into a songwriter. All songwriters are spoiled brats.
That's right.
Were you spoiled? Were you spoiled?
I was by my mama, and you can ask any one of my sisters, and they will certainly attest to that. But yeah, I mean, I grew up, I was way down the rankings. So by the time I started listening to music, all my siblings were off at college, and so I had full access to their great.
Anybody play in your family besides you?
My sister Melissa played guitar. My sister Beth sang. My brother tinkered at the piano.
What did you listen to when you were growing up?
Well, all their records. I mean,
Who were some of the artists?
Well, I mean, I was very blessed because my folks were so old when they had me. I mean, I grew up with the big band stuff. I had Glenn Miller and Nat King Cole from them. And then I had all the R&B from my brother, and my sister Mickey was into Buddy Holly and people like that. And then my sisters that were closer to me, my twin sisters that were closer to me, were into the Beatles and the Stones. So, I mean, I had a real good education.
What about country? Anybody do that?
You know, and that's the oddest thing of all, is the fact that I would wind up here in Nashville. I didn't grow up listening to country music. I mean, I grew up with a great AM station down there, 1400 AM in Savannah, and they would play everything.
Do you remember the call letters?
Hold on, WSAV.
All right.
And it was, and the great part about it was the fact that you would hear, you'd hear Teddy Pendergrass, you'd hear
Marvin Gaye,
Barbara Mandrell. You'd hear everything.
Berlin Husky.
Yeah, it was everything.
Good variety.
They just throw it all out there.
Right.
Well, when I heard you play the dance, it sounds folky to me. Did you grow up with any folk music?
I did. Well, my sisters were particularly my sister Melissa was very big into that. Buffy St. Marie, and of course
Joan Baez,
Peter, Paul, and Mary, and it was a great thing to be exposed to so many different types of music, because, I mean, it wasn't like you were just. Unfortunately, today I think there's such a
genre focus.
Yeah, everything is about one thing as opposed to just listening to everything.
Well, speaking of one thing, I heard that kind of your one thing in high school was not music, but it was more sports. Is that right?
Yeah.
You were a jock?
Well,
a Tybee Island jock?
Hardly a jock, but yeah, I grew up listening to and loving the sport of baseball. So I played, and then I realized that I wasn't going to be needed in the baseball.
What position did you play?
Left field, and some could argue I may still be
out there.
Still be out there, you know.
Well, that's why you've been successful, because our industry craves those that think a little bit outside the box and left of center, I think.
Right. Well,
left of center is exactly right. Left field.
They didn't know they were going to get this many one-liners on the
What team
Tony
did you
show.
root for?
The San Francisco Giants. They had Willie Mays, and that was enough for me. So.
Okay. But then I hear you get your first guitar, and there was a unique characteristic of his first guitar. Tell us about that.
My brother gave me my first, when it became obvious that I was not going to be the first round draft choice for anybody.
Including Tybee Island.
Right. My brother gave me a guitar, and it had only 3 strings on it. And it had the E and the A and the high E. That was it. And I thought that's all I really needed. I was thoroughly convinced that I could make it on that. From that, I started learning. The first instrument I actually really owned was a bass guitar, because with the 2 bass strings on the guitar, I learned a lot of the bass riffs that were, on songs at the time,
Sure.
Jumpin' Jack Flash and some of the stuff from Curtis Mayfield and stuff like that. So it was not until I realized that you actually had to have a complete set and learn how to tune and learn how to play chords and what. But it's all, that's the beautiful part about music, is the fact that you don't have to be great when you first start out. You don't have to do everything properly. It's an exploratory process, and you learn as you go.
Do you play any other instruments besides guitar?
Mercifully, no.
Where'd you learn how to finger pick like that? You're pretty good at it.
Actually, I tell you what, whatever little bit I know about the guitar, I probably learned as much after we moved to Nashville as anything, because I played in bands all through high school and in college and stuff like that, so you can kind of be in the background.
College, you had a journalism degree, right?
I did, from Georgia Southern University in Statesboro.
I went to journalism school after I got out of college.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I lasted 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Some of my professors wish it would have lasted about that long, Jesse.
He's a quick learner.
That's right.
That's a good segue to talking about the journalism. I remember you have told me that you loved being in the room at home and studying the album covers and looking at lyrics, and that you had a revelation or two about that.
And that's another thing that I think is missing so much today, is that it's all about singles, and it's all about one song off of one album, and I used to sit in the, at college parties and stuff, and just sit there with albums like, Running on Empty, Jackson Browne or something like that, and read the whole album liners and look at the pictures and
see who the musicians were that played,
Sure,
who wrote the songs.
And studying great lyrics is the best way to learn how to hopefully someday write some. I mean, if you read really great lyrics, you have a chance of actually,
I think singing them helps a lot too. Helps you get into the commercialness of it.
Sure, and if you go out and you sing a great song, like a cover song or something like Jackson Browne or whoever, you tend to figure out there's certain lines in this song that that's why people want to hear that song again.
Well, how old were you when you first started writing songs?
Well, I started writing in high school a little bit, and they were all, as you can imagine, and you've written songs, Jesse.
Every one of my songs is perfect.
Well,
always has been.
Well, yes,
that's why I'm his private banker.
Well, to my mother, they were all perfect. That's true enough. But
as were you.
Yes, that's true enough. But you just don't. That's just not the way it is in real life. So
best songs are rewritten, not written, right?
That's right. And again, after I moved here, and you get exposed to so many great lyricists and songwriters, and you start to realize that it's not necessarily about how well you play or how well you sing. The most important thing is, what are you saying when you play or sing, and so that was a great awakening.
So you're playing in these bands, doing a lot of cover songs, not many originals, mainly covers. But then, how do you all of a sudden get a cut as a songwriter?
Well, living in Savannah, I was playing in a band, and I played in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, Hotlanta, GA.
Yes, and one of my old college buddies was dating a secretary of a gentleman who had started an independent record label in Atlanta.
Okay, this would have been in early 80s?
Real early, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Maybe 80.
Yeah. So she came out to the show, and she said they were working with an artist by the name of Jim Glaser, who I knew from the Glaser Brothers.
Right, sure.
And she said, well, have you got a tape of something? And so I was at least smart enough to know to have something to hand out to somebody.
So was that your first pitch?
It was. It was.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And several months later, I got a call from the gentleman in Atlanta saying that they wanted to use the song for Jim's first album. And I had no, I mean, this was, I can't imagine, tell you how out of the loop I was when it comes to the music business. I had no earthly idea what that even meant.
And what was that song?
It was a song called The Man in the Mirror that became the title song of Jim's first independent, or first solo project.
Okay.
And he's, for those that know him, he's one of the nicest people in the world, and he's also one of the best singers that I've ever heard. He's just a great guy.
So what happened after that, after you got that cut?
Well, timing is everything, Jesse, and that song actually got released as a single and went up the charts, and it was.
And you're going, hey, this is easy.
Yeah, I mean, who can't do this?
So you give them a tape, they record the song, it goes up the charts.
This
Life
is easy.
good.
What's the big deal about this?
Right. Well, then you have to back up a little bit because I was still living in Savannah and still playing in bands and still writing songs. But we, by the time my wife Jamie and I moved to Nashville, all of that had already faded. So we basically
that money was
here.
Gone, essentially.
Right, and all
the reputation behind it. And all
right,
that,
everything was gone.
The
So we kind
buzz
of we moved here and basically started over is what we did. But
What, you got a job at doing what?
We moved here in November or late October of 1986, and with no plan and no idea what we were going to do. And Jamie actually
But to
got
pursue
a job.
the dream.
Yes, right.
Right.
Jamie kind of called my hand on it. We were living in Thunderbolt, Georgia, which is a shrimping community there in Savannah, and she gave our 30 days notice to our landlord and said, we're going to move to Nashville. And so she kind of forced the hand. So 30 days later we moved here, and
What did you do to pay the rent?
well, she got a job with she's the brains of the outfit, needless to say, and she got a job with a company here in town. At the time, it was called Envoy Corporation. I used all my skills that I had, which basically
To get her as
Jesse,
your wife.
you notice you know, lifting and toting stuff is about all a musician knows how to do. So I got a job with UPS.
Good
And-
company.
Yes.
That's a good job.
Yeah.
The
Well, I mean,
brown.
Did you have the brown uniform and everything?
No, Jesse. I wasn't that far up the ladder. I was
You were
in the back of the
room.
truck. Yeah.
The one that's still out there on whatever that street is.
Massman Drive.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I was grateful for it, and I met a lot of good people. And my degree was in journalism from school. And while I was out there, I started writing articles for the company magazine. I just went around and interviewed people and submitted it in the company magazine. And I finally wound up with a portfolio of clippings, proving that I actually knew how to string a sentence together.
And apply that journalism degree that your folks had helped pay for, I'm sure.
So then I wound up working for a magazine company here in town.
A Diesel magazine, I think, wasn't it?
It was
or
it was
Mechanics or something like that?
It's hard to believe, but they were a trade publication, and they wrote about the American Bus Association out of Washington, D.C. And one of their magazines dealt with equipment, buses, engines, tires, transmissions, about which I knew nothing.
Did you quit UPS?
I did.
Okay.
And went to work for them. But if you really want to know how worlds collide, while I was writing for this magazine, to back up just a little bit, before I got that job, right after I moved to Nashville in '86 was when I wrote The Dance.
In '86?
Yeah. And
We're playing clubs at this time, right?
Open
Doing
mic
all
shows.
the open
Yeah,
mics.
Right, open mic shows, right.
Playing original material.
Were you playing that
versus-
song around too?
Yes.
So you were playing that in the places and everything?
Right.
And people, it must have got a good reaction from people.
It did, but the odd part about it, Jesse, is the fact that I played it out one night at the Bluebird Cafe shortly after I wrote it, and I was doing a show that night with a young man who had just moved here from Oklahoma by the name of Garth Brooks.
Doing a show, he was on the same round as you or something?
Right,
Yes.
right.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
He was on that. This was an open
Liz
mic show.
Hingber was
There are
on
more
that.
people in this studio right here than
We're
sitting
in
right
that
here
audience?
than we're in the audience.
Okay.
But there was me and Garth, and there was a young lady by the name of Liz Hingber, who went on to write a bunch of songs
Right.
for Reba McEntire. and a fellow named Mark Irwin, who went on to write
Sure.
Here in the Real World.
Stuff.
Right. That was the four of us.
That's a pretty good
Wow.
round.
And we outnumbered the
86.
audience. But at the end of the show, Garth came up and said, he said, if I ever get a record deal, he said, I'd love to do that song. Well, this was in '86, and in late '88, almost 3 years later, he called and had been signed to Capitol Records and said, if that song's still available, then...
So he remembered that song. And
Oh,
you
yes.
Heard it
Yes.
once, and he remembered that song for
Right.
2 years. Did you have contact with him in between
Oh,
that?
sure. Yeah, we've been. I'm grateful to say we've been friends ever since we met. We met at Douglas Corner back in '86. I walked in to another open mic show, and there was this guy sitting on stage singing a song, and I went up and introduced myself to him afterwards. You could tell he had something about him. He was a great singer and just had an aura about him, and but he's still the same guy that from back then. He truly is to me.
And I've
I met him as a songwriter, and that's what I think of him as still.
So after that song was released, tell me what happened. I mean, it's more.
how did it become
Yeah.
the Grammy-nominated song?
Well, you know, that's
What was
probably
the path?
That's probably my favorite story of all. Was that I was still working for the magazine,
Okay.
and it went to the top of the charts and stayed there for a long time, and then it actually got nominated. It got nominated for a Grammy. I'm still writing about buses down at this
Right.
little company, and I was telling Lisa the other day, I was on the phone with a gentleman from Detroit Diesel talking about a new engine they had coming out, and I got a call from the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences saying that the dance
You're like,
had
can
been-
you hold just a
Yeah,
moment? I got to take this
I
other
did.
call.
I had to put them on hold and say, I'm sorry, I'm doing an interview right now, and I went right back to talking to the gentleman from Detroit Diesel. So you just never know how worlds collide. But I mean, I will say this, and to anyone who's thinking about writing out there, I mean, it's always good to expose yourself to other areas of life other than just Music Row or other
Gives you
songwriters.
more stuff to write about.
Sure. I mean,
Broadens your life
You know
experiences.
something? My biggest complaint about songs is there's so many love songs. There's too many love songs. We write books about everything. There's movies about everything, but all songs are love songs.
Do we need just a good hate
No,
song?
we just
Just another topic.
songs can be
Another
written
topic.
about. Songs are not hate, but songs can be written about so many different things.
Right.
The dance isn't a love song. It's a love song, but it's not.
It's a life.
Cheated me, you cheated me.
Right.
It's like
Sure.
a.
Well,
It's a
and
life anthem.
It's a life anthem. That's right. That's a good idea.
Well, and the thing is the fact that if it was just as easy to sit down and write something like that you would do that every day.
But-
What
That's
inspired
would
the
happen.
actual song?
Well, I'm not going to lie about it. I mean, this is the honest truth. And it's well documented. I had the melody for a long time, and loved the melody, and had a dreadful set of lyrics that I wrote, and they fit the melody, but they didn't
Right.
mean anything. And then I went to see a movie called Peggy Sue Got Married. I don't know if you remember.
know
Oh,
that movie.
sure.
Sure.
Yes.
Kathleen
Turner?
Absolutely.
And
Nick
Nicolas Cage.
Right.
Yes.
And
She goes back in time or something. She goes
Right.
ahead.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But when she goes back in time, she knows how dreadful her life turned out when she married Nick Cage. So this time when he asked her to marry him, she goes, no, I'm not doing this again. I mean, I know how this turns out.
Right. I know the end of that story.
And so there's a locket, similar to your necklace, Lisa, there's a locket around her neck, and she opens it, and her kids' pictures aren't there anymore. Because if she doesn't marry him, she doesn't get her kids. So, I mean, it just hit me that you don't get to pick and choose your memories. I mean, you have to kind of just ride the
Where
whole
would you
ride.
get the dance from?
Well, there is a scene
How
in
did
the
that become the title?
Well, there is a scene in the movie where that's where she first blanks out. Is she's on the dance
Okay.
floor at a prom,
Oh,
and I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not, or just a rare snatch of
Insightful.
grabbing something, the metaphor of the
Right.
dance for life itself.
Right.
And but I wrote the song and I recorded it. After I knew what the song was supposed to be about, it only took me about maybe 30 minutes to write the lyric because I knew what the song was supposed to be
What
about.
did the demo sound like? Or did you have to make a demo?
Well, that's a wonderful story in itself. It's just all it was. That's the opening that I had.
Right.
Well, I was playing at Douglas Corner, another open mic night, and trying to get somebody to listen to something, and
because the dance had been
it had been recorded, but I had not heard it yet.
Right.
I had not heard it. And Garth and his friend Ty England were riding around in Garth's truck.
Ty was one of
night.
his band members,
right?
And then I had a solo deal
That's
on
right.
RCA,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Great kid.
They showed up at Douglas Corner one night while I was playing there, and Garth said, "Hey, I want you to come over and hear the new album." And I said, "Well, I just left. I put my guitar down on the stage. I walked out of Douglas Corner. I didn't even pack my guitar up or anything. I just got in the truck. And we rode over to Bob Doyle's office and listened to the album." Right, his manager, and still his manager. And Garth played me the whole album.
Had any of the singles been released from that record
No,
yet?
the album hadn't been released.
Okay.
So this was the first listen to the whole project. And so there's only 10 songs on the first album, and it went all the way through, and I started counting down, and I went, well, we're at 10, and...
So he didn't even start with yours.
No, he played the entire album from top to bottom. He's always been a big believer that, you know, it's an album.
Yes.
It's not just not a song. And so it got to number 10, I went, well, and I was listening, and then it started with that piano intro, which is in a minor key. And I was, for a moment, I truly was, I was crestfallen. I went, I didn't make the record. I didn't.
That's not my song.
No, I said that we're out of songs, and that's not
that's
mine.
number 10, and that's not.
It was beautiful, but I didn't. I said that's not my song, and then it turned out to be. And and I think more than anything, you know, in this town, there are artists, and there are songwriters and whatnot. But you know, in order to they made a record out of it, and Garth made it his song. He didn't try to just do what he had heard on a because the demo was nothing but an acoustic guitar and a vocal.
And so Alan Reynolds, the producer, had the ears and the head to go, I'm hearing more, even more. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, and it was the song that everyone knows, or whoever knows of the song. It's the players that played on it that day. It's the producer. It's the artist. And they actually took something. There was no. They weren't just copying something they had received.
They created magic.
They actually made it Garth's song, and made it a real. I mean, it's something that I'm so proud of to this day. And I don't know if how much that happens these days. You know?
Well, I tell you what doesn't happen a lot these days is for one person to have been the sole writer of a song. I'm so blessed, and we all are, that we get to go to #1 parties, and they will go, and the 3 or 4 songwriters, and then various publishers will get up, and there will be many, many people that have been involved in the creation of that song. So for you to have had this career, lifetime song where you're the lyricist, you wrote the melody.
Yeah, but Lisa, I think sometimes when you get a song that's really emotional, a lot of times it takes one writer. Because sometimes it gets diluted by too many writers. Well, and also, I mean, where I grew up, there was not a there wasn't a vibrant songwriting community.
Right.
Although I come from a town, Savannah, Georgia, that produced Johnny Mercer. I did see. I did see. Oh, really? I didn't know that. I did see on the internet where you said something about before you co-write, you should know how to write a song by yourself. Absolutely, yeah. Right. Oh, I don't think you can go into a co-writing situation and bring anything if you can't be left alone and come out with a song. But some people are just straight lyricists and they can't do it. Which and that I truly defend because Johnny Mercer was a lyricist, right? And you know, but he had people around him, you know, Richard Rodgers and I don't think he ever wrote with Richard Rodgers. I don't think they have any songs together. I could be wrong, but. Well, I know he and Henry Mancini wrote Moon River. Yeah.
Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left, and we have to mention some of the other incredible artists that have recorded your songs. I think about the great run you and your buddy Leroy Parnell have had, Holding My Own.
Yeah, let's name some of them.
That song was at the top of the charts.
Patty Loveless is one of my all-time favorites.
And my husband's, I must say. Patty is his all-time favorite.
Right.
And what is some,
Here I Am, and she had an album out that was called Long Stretch of Lonesome that was titled.
Don Williams.
Don Williams did a song of mine called Handful of Dust.
Bonnie Raitt.
Did a song that I wrote with her guitar player, George Marinelli.
Randy Travis.
He did a song called Satisfied Mind.
Those are just a few that come to my mind, and I know there are some, but you and Leroy have had a string of hits together.
Well, I love Leroy, and you know, there's so many talented people in this town. That's what makes it so hard.
And everybody has their own unique talent. Some people are better lyric writers, some people are better music writers, some people are great musicians, some people are great producers. Everybody has that one skill that is better than, you know, that makes them stand out. What would your one skill be?
Well, it may be self-assuming, but I love lyrics more than I love anything else.
Comes from the journalism, telling a story.
Well, and also it's just the fact that you realize what a challenge it is. You've got 3 minutes to tell the story. It's just like journalism. You've got just a little bit of time to get this point across. Right. But when you read a lyric from top to bottom that you go, there's not a word out of place, and it tells the complete story, it's a challenge. And I love that aspect of it. And I love to write, and I've said it over and over, and to any writers who are watching this, whether or not anything had ever been done, I would have written these songs. I mean, I just enjoy the process, and I enjoy doing it.
And he's got 2 talented daughters, Allison and Katie. We must not forget them, in addition to his wife, Jamie. He and Leroy both have daughters named Allison, and they had a song about daddies and daughters. And so, but there's so much more. I think we may even do a second show to cover everything, because we're out of time.
We have to wrap this up. Anyway, my name is Jesse Goldberg. This is Lisa Harless. And this is Tony Arata. And we'll be back next week with another edition of Mind Your Own Music Business.
Thank you.